นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. It's very common when people begin a meditation retreat or they come to stay in the monastery for a while. They find the first day or two very challenging because the mind hasn't settled down into the practice yet. And they see that very clearly. They've been very busy perhaps with work, family, travel, many things. Then they come into the monastery or they begin their retreat and there's a lot of, momentum in the mind. Thinking, remembering, worrying, old habits are carrying on for a while, even though they start to practice in meditation more intensely and more continuously, aiming to bring up mindfulness, putting effort into that. The mind doesn't just stop or respond how you would like, just like that. For most people, that's the experience. And so they have to be very patient during that initial period, and then often usually we say maybe 3 days, and then the mind settles down and becomes more manageable, and one's meditation improves, which means the mind becomes a more pleasant place to stay. It's almost like you've moved into a new house which is full of junk or needs tidying up, sorting out, and you can't settle down until your new house everything is tidied. That takes a bit of time. In this case, we're talking about the mind, so it takes a while to tidy the mind up and get into a new routine and shed and let go of various mental habits and worries. Of course, some things you can't let go that easily, but many trivial things or unimportant things you do let go of quite quick. But it still takes time. But occasionally you get those situations where this letting go of all the unimportant stuff and bringing attention right to the present moment and right to the Dhamma happens very quickly. And one of those occasions might be when someone dies, someone passes away in whatever situation, particularly if it's someone close to you, like a parent, loved one, teacher. If it's someone important in your life, when they pass away, often there's a certain power in that experience for a while. It cuts through everything else and you're immediately brought to the present moment, and all this other mental chatter and wondering and planning and restlessness of mind sort of goes quiet for a while because of the unusual nature of the situation and the sort of immediacy of what's happened. You might call it a kind of shock, but might not necessarily be in a state of shock. I mean, some people are, but it brings your attention right to the present moment. So many people noticed that when our teacher Luang Por Chah passed away, even though he'd been ill for many years, the actual day he passed away, or on the night he passed away, so overnight he was dying, and then he passed away just before dawn, around 5, if I remember correctly, 5:19 a.m. or 5:20 a.m. Suddenly there was this kind of urgency to everything one was doing. Nothing else was very important other than, in the first instance, just going to the teacher, paying respects, and allowing the truth just to settle into the mind. Oh, he's finally gone after all these years. Even though everyone had been planning and preparing mentally for it, it still was a kind of shock. And that mood or that atmosphere stayed for quite a long time. It wasn't just a sort of a short period of time, because when he passed away, it was actually 1 year that we kept his body in a coffin in the monastery as the monastery was prepared for a royal funeral, which took place exactly 1 year after he died. There was a lot of preparations going on, but there was also a lot of Dhamma practice. And every night for a year, people would come together in the monastery, sometimes in very large numbers, always in at least some numbers. Sangha, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, would come together every night to meditate, chant, listen to chanting, what we call funeral chanting or Abhidhamma chanting, and listen to Dhamma teachings, explanations of the Dhamma from hundreds of monks, senior monks, not just from Ajahn Chah's own community, but also from all around Thailand and even overseas. Monks would come and give talks every night. And everyone said, oh, the atmosphere is, we use the word electric. I'm not sure how atmosphere can be electric, but that was just a description, meaning it was charged. It was as there was a sort of something in the air that you couldn't put into words, or really, it wasn't something physical, but they said it was electric. It was like there was just this energy and real purpose and sense of kind of bringing your attention right to the present moment. So many people had actually had very good meditation, even though the teacher had died, and it was a sad kind of time. But strangely, people got very good meditation experiences because it cut through all the chatter and all the unimportant stuff that we love to fill our minds with. And people would meditate sometimes all night long, and all day, all night there was always monks sitting with the coffin of Ajahn Chah in the main hall, meditating, being there, on a kind of rotation, doing shifts. Just as when he was alive, we used to do shifts, looking after him physically, nursing him. Once he died, then looking after the coffin and being there. You could call it Patipati Puja, just remembering the teacher with the practice, or honouring the teacher through the practice. But one of those the lessons people learn is, when somebody important in your life, whether it's a family member or a teacher, dies, it cuts through all the mental, or a lot of the mental rubbish. Of course, it brings up emotions and sadness, of course, many different emotions, but the mind is kind of right there, at least for a while, very present, and that is reflected when you meditate. However, somebody recently was mentioning how we do Buddhist funerals. Buddhists have funerals, obviously. Buddhists die just like anyone else in the world. And when Buddhist funerals take place, they can be done in many different ways. It's not necessarily a standard role or model of or form for a Buddhist funeral, but they were pointing out that their experience is that when you have a funeral, it could be like Ajahn Chah's funeral, a time where everyone comes together to honour the teacher through the practice, keeping precepts, meditating, listening to Dhamma, being mindful, really being present to what's going on. And yet, so often, it's not like that. It's almost like a Buddhist joke. At a funeral, the last thing you're going to do is meditate, even though it's probably the best thing you should do. It's the last thing that people do. You might invite monks to chant and give teachings and blessings, but it tends to be a social thing. And they say the thing you remember about most funerals is meeting up with friends and relatives who you haven't met up with for a while. And it becomes a social thing, and everyone is chatting. And in one hand you could say, well, they're relaxed, friendly. Well, that's good in terms of not getting too caught up in the grief. But in terms of practicing Dhamma, being mindful, paying attention to the Dhamma, reflecting on the Dhamma, maybe not so much of that is going on, because everyone is caught up in the socializing and the distraction of that. And they were saying, people are not talking about the Dhamma, or even if there's a Dhamma talk from monks, they're not necessarily listening to the Dhamma talk very much. Number one subject for conversation might be, the food on offer. The food, how much there is, whether it's good, tasty food or not. Secondly is probably the flower arrangements, how many flowers there are, how much money was spent on the flowers, who did them, and so on. These more superficial things become the centre of the funeral rather than the reflection on the Dhamma. And the monks do their best to draw people's attention back to the Dhamma, sometimes with success, sometimes with not much success. It just depends. The monks do what we call Abhidhamma chanting, funeral chanting. Sometimes, many times in a funeral, a Buddhist funeral can last many days, so sometimes the same chants are recited over and over again. And traditionally, say in Thailand, when you do funeral chanting, the Abhidhamma chanting, you hold a fan in front of you as you chant. And sometimes those fans have little Dhamma sayings on them, which are quite useful. I'm not sure anyone actually reads them, but monks do. So they might say things like aging. There's 4 monks usually, so they say aging, sickness, death. And another one they say is like gone, never to return. Things like that, often quite direct Dhamma teachings about impermanence and the fact that you'll never return to the world looking like this, being like this. Buddhists believe in rebirth, going to your next life, but you'll never have the same body, same personality, same character completely in your next life. So they say, gone, never to return. And other Buddhist sayings, they'll have them on these printed on these fans that people are looking at as the monks chant, but maybe they're not paying much attention. Or even the words that the monks chant, it's usually Pali, as I said, Abhidhamma, and often the most sort of common phrase you'll hear at a Buddhist funeral is Kusala Dhamma, Akusala Dhamma, Abhaya Kata Dhamma, what we call Matika chanting, and the different Abhidhamma teachings are laid out or chanted out for reflection. Sometimes the monks will endeavour to explain them as well, but whether people are listening or not, I'm not sure, because maybe the finger food is more important. But it's just pointing to the fact that in the end, what is it that you take with you when you die? You take your mind with you and your karma. What affects the mind? What is the mind? It's kind of like a storage vessel for your karma, good, bad, or neither good nor bad. And that's what that recitation is explaining. Good is, in short, a kusala karma, good karma, wholesome karma is in short, or the most important good karma, in short, is the Noble Eightfold Path. practice of sila, samadhi, panya, as the Buddha explained, is the path that leads to the end of suffering. So that's the most important kind of good karma to make. Akusala karma is unskillful, unwholesome karma, which leads to suffering, and particularly at the time of death may be a cause for one to be reborn in what we call a lower realm, the 4 lower realms, states of woe, states of distress. Could be the animal realm, ghost realm, demon realm, or hell realm. And often it is a time when people start thinking about their karma, good and bad, that they've made through their life and that the person who's died has made. They have that electric energy, maybe, the atmosphere, electric atmosphere, just for a short time maybe they think about good and bad karma, and when you die, where are you going to go, what kind of karma have you made? And then maybe the mind comes back to the normal thinking and what we call proliferating, wondering, restless, agitated, doubting, planning things for the future, thinking about the past and so on. Very quickly the electric atmosphere fades away and then back to the normal thinking. But for a while maybe people do think about karma. Good karma, kusala karma, bad karma, akusala karma, and the results that we experience in the present moment, happiness and suffering, and then the results in the next life, which perhaps we don't know yet, we can't predict, but at least the seeds of doubt are laid down with that reflection. And then abhaya gata dhamma, nobody knows what that means usually if you ask them. It means neither good nor bad karma. And then they say, well, what does that mean? And there's sort of different kinds of neither good nor bad karma. Probably the most important one for us as practitioners is what we call vibhaka karma, resultant karma. So neither good nor bad karma, meaning we're always not only making new karma that is good and bad, but also we're receiving the results of our karma, good and bad, such as pleasure and pain that comes through our senses, sights that are pleasurable, unpleasant, sounds, pleasant, unpleasant, sensations we experience, smelling, tasting, touching with our body, and then mentally, of course, the 6th sense. We're constantly receiving the fruits of old karma. And the old karma was obviously intentional action, good and bad intentions, that has led on to karma being made, and then we are experiencing the result. But the result is kind of neutral in the sense we're not yet doing anything, good or bad, we're just experiencing the result. So that's why it's called karma. There's neither good nor bad, because it's just the result of what you've previously done. It's just pointing out there are, there's cause, there's result, and there's separate moments. And the result may be very unpleasant, very painful sometimes, or very pleasant sometimes, or mildly pleasant, mildly painful. But if it's just the result of something, you're not yet making good karma at that moment, you're receiving the fruits of your old karma. But then the next moment maybe you start making fresh karma, so now the kusala karma, the akusala karma kicks in. So you experience something pleasant maybe, and then the mind maybe starts thinking in a certain way based on that pleasant memory or a pleasant thing seen or heard, depending. And the mind, we say, proliferates, and the initial stimulus may be old karma, receiving that fruit, and then we start to proliferate, and it might stimulate you have what we call a good memory, a pleasant memory. So if you're at a funeral, you might remember the person who died and think, we spent time together, they did those good things, I like what they did, or they helped me, or they did good things in their life, such a good person maybe, and so you get a lot of joy. But then the joy is the resultant karma of thinking about them and their life. But then the next sort of period you might be proliferating, it might lead to sadness. Oh, now they've gone, now they're not here anymore, and your mind starts thinking in that way. So fresh karma of missing someone you love, sadness. Or occasionally you do hear, somebody has passed, you remember them, and then it's, I'm not going to have them on my back anymore. They're not going to bully me again. They're not going to cause me trouble again. It does happen. This happened even with the Buddha. There was one monk, when he heard the Buddha had entered parinibbana, the Buddha had died. As one monk said, good, I'm not going to have the Buddha telling me what to do anymore, because the Buddha would teach the monks, and that sometimes involved telling them what to do, what not to do. And one monk didn't like that. He obviously had little faith in the Buddha. He's a monk, but he didn't have much faith. And he was annoyed sometimes with the Buddha, I guess. So he was happy when the Buddha was gone. No one on my back anymore. But this is all fresh karma. There's the memory of someone passed away, and then you react, don't you? Oh, they're gone. I'm happy they've gone, or I'm sad they've gone. Or you just, if you're skillful, maybe you just skillfully remember the good of that person. That would probably be the recommendation in that situation. Just recollect, we say recollect mindfully their good qualities, their good actions, and it will bring you some joy, maybe, that you knew them, and that can be helpful to counter the tendency to grief and sadness. But it's skillful karma also for you in that moment. So these are reflections. The monks are chanting the Abhidhamma to stimulate reflection. Of course, to get stimulated in the right way, you've got to pay attention. So you have to put the food down, stop the socializing, stop gazing at the flower arrangements, and then listen and then reflect on karma. If you're going to do it well in that moment. So that's why I was saying that Ajahn Chah's funeral, day after day, there was very good kind of atmosphere where monks and lay people came together and meditated, and so they were really paying attention. There was a lot of understanding of the Dhamma taking place, a lot of joy in, not that he was dead obviously, but joy in recollecting his Dhamma, in recollecting his life. There was a lot of memory stimulated of what he had said, his teachings, his lifestyle, how he's practiced coming up. So people got a lot out of that experience, even though it was also sad that he had gone. And that's because they were paying attention. And that would be the aim for any funeral, whether it's a formal funeral or you just hear the news someone you know has died, or it's an informal funeral, just a gathering, it just depends on the situation. This would be the encouragement, is to reflect on the Dhamma skillfully. That would be good karma. And one reason we do that, we listen to the Dhamma, we meditate, we reflect on the Dhamma, is to obviously help us at that time when we may be feeling sad or grief, to help other people around us who may be sad, grieved, confused. People tend to get very emotional when someone's died. So it's to help ourselves, help those around. And then of course in Buddhism we have this practice of dedicating merit. We say udisana, punya, merit. Udisa is to dedicate to the dead person. The idea being that maybe the dead person is confused, suffering, maybe hasn't received a good rebirth yet. We don't know. Most people don't know that. Very few people have that insight into where someone is reborn, but most people don't. But we have this practice of dedicating merit to the dead to help them in their journey or into their rebirth. And some people, you might say the purists, say, well, there's no self, so there's nothing born, nothing dies, nothing's born, no need to think like that there's a person moving from one life to another. And in the deepest, most profound sense, yeah, that's true. But our minds work on the level, the conventional level, that there is a person who dies and a person who will be reborn in the next life. So on that conventional, ordinary way of thinking, you want the person who you know and maybe love and have made good karma with in the past, you want them to have a good rebirth. So we dedicate merit. Sometimes Ajahn Chah used to joke about this. He'd say, some people, they don't make much merit in their life. They just kind of go to work, come home, enjoy themselves, use their money to play, to gamble, drink, do whatever they want, but they don't make much merit. And they're hoping that when they die, their family or their kids will make merit for them. So before they die, having never made much merit themselves, they sort of tell all the kids, you've got to make merit for me when I die. And everyone's sort of sitting there. Ajahn Chah used to say, don't wait hoping that your family, your kids are going to make merit for you. It's not a very safe or skillful way to do it, is it? I mean, it's a bit like the kid who goes to school and never studies and just hopes they'll somehow, on the night before their main exams, they'll somehow get the knowledge to pass the exam. It's not a very wise attitude to hold. Better to make merit as you go through your life, and then you don't even need to worry about your kids or your family making merit for you. So Ajahn Chah would point that out. He'd say, some people only ever come to the temple to make merit when they're dying, once they've died rather, in the coffin. That's the only time you'll get them into a Buddhist monastery, is in the coffin. When of course you can't make merit anyway, it's too late. But if you're hoping for other people to make merit for you, you really don't know. And lots of people die in this world and are very quickly forgotten, unfortunately. And people don't make merit for them. So better, if you have this kind of understanding about karma, good karma, bad karma, use your life to refrain or stop making bad karma and to cultivate good karma. Not to please anyone else necessarily, it's for yourself, for your own peace of mind, for your own progress of your own mind, to develop your mind in a good way, a skillful way, for your own happiness and freedom from suffering in this life and the next. That's another thing people often say, well, I don't believe in rebirth, reincarnation, that's too much for me, I don't know whether it's true, I don't believe in it. But the Buddha said it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, this life is the thing that's important. This is what you're leading, is this life. This much you can know, that you're living in the world, your state of mind, your actions. This is where you have to make the good karma for this life. And if you make good karma and it can affect your next life, well, all the better. But of course, if what the Buddha says is true, then there's also a certain investment in what happens after you die if you haven't reached Nibbana, because karma gives its fruit not just this life but into the next life. So it's again why the monks are chanting Kusala Dhamma, Akusala Dhamma, Abhayagata Dhamma. One of those Abhayagata Dhammas is the karma or the lack of karma, the neither good nor bad karma of an arahant. Arahants, people who have reached Nibbana, who have completed the Noble Eightfold Path, purified their mind of delusion, no longer attached to the idea of a self or a sense of self in their khandhas, their body, their mind. Their mind is free and no longer making karma. So everything they do is what we call giriya. It's just the behavior of that person, but there's no karma made. This is another kind of abhayagata dhamma, which is pointed out when someone dies. That if you practice this Buddhist path, it will get you beyond good and bad karma and get beyond the whole round of rebirth. You really will not need to worry about anything. But what we tend to do before that, we haven't reached that point, obviously. Very few people have reached Nibbana yet. We don't like to think about it. Good karma, bad karma, when I die, what's going to happen next? It's too much, maybe, for us to take on in our mind. So we tend to just put it to one side or say, I don't believe in that. It's easier not to believe in, isn't it? Then you don't have to think about it. But just imagine if it's true. Then there's this teaching, well, there is good karma, and the fruits of good karma may bring you back to ideally to a human rebirth, so you can carry on practicing Dhamma. Best form, best existence to be in is a human. If not that, maybe a Deva, or if you develop some deep samadhi and jhana, maybe a Brahma. These are the results of good karma for one who hasn't yet reached Nibbana. But bad karma if that becomes dominant, or the main kind of karma affecting your mind as you die, then there's what we call the states of distress that you may be reborn into: animal realm, ghost realm, hell realm, and so on. And if that's true, well, you don't want that, do you? Simple as that. It's suffering, states of suffering. You don't want suffering from this life to continue into the next. Unfortunately, because of delusion, we do create karma, and sometimes unknowingly or knowingly we create very powerful negative karma, but our aim is to refrain from doing that. And that's what the monks are kind of encouraging you to do at the time of anybody's funeral, if there's Buddhist monk, chanting, kusala karma, akusala karma, abhayagata karma, dhamma, and they just pass on this teaching and explain it a bit further. There's often more chants to remind you, to get you focused, to bring up that present moment awareness, so you're more aware of what karma you're making from day to day. So this is the benefit of death, is it brings you back to the present moment, and maybe makes you really think about karma, makes you think about your life. What kind of life am I leading? Where am I going? What's happening here? Am I making good karma or bad karma? To really know what kind of karma you're making, well, the best way to know is cultivate meditation, cultivate this Noble Eightfold Path, sila, live in a kind of way where you're not harming others through your speech, your actions. Then cultivate mindfulness, effort, and through developing mindfulness, clear awareness, and effort to abandon unwholesome states of mind, you develop more and more clarity or brightness of mind. Just like when you turn a light on in a room, like now we have the lights on so you can see. Developing mindfulness and then states of samadhi will help you brighten your mind so you can see the kind of karma you're making every day. And then you can make choices to abandon or stop yourself making bad karma and consciously bring up good karma. To do that, you need to train your mind to look at itself, to know itself. And in practical reality, how do you know your mind? Well, you see your mind through your thoughts, don't you? How you're thinking and what you're thinking about. But you have to pay attention, because the thoughts are very deluding, and very quickly you get lost in your thoughts. Even when you meditate, you notice that, don't you? You may be doing sitting or walking meditation. Your mind starts wandering, agitated. It can wander because it's desiring pleasant things, or it can be wandering and agitated because of something unpleasant. It just depends what the stimulation is. But it will wander. The last place is in the present moment, from moment to moment. That takes effort to do that, to be present, to be aware from moment to moment. It's much more used to just thinking. good and bad, and just thinking often without much guidance. Again, a lot of this vibhaka or resultant karma coming up, and then it just leads to mental proliferation. I like this, I want this, I don't like that, don't want that. And all this thinking fills the mind. It's the activity of the mind much of the time. Obviously it leads on to speech, action, and the quality of our speech, our action is determined by the mental state and the kind of thinking that precedes it. Sometimes it's so fast you can't even catch it, can you? Often you're speaking, like I'm speaking now. I tend to speak things that I've already thought through and have spoken before, just concepts of Dhamma, reflections on the Dhamma and so on. But it's very fast from thought arising and then putting into speech. And you'll notice in daily life, as you interact with other people in the world, often thoughts pop up very quick, and then straight away we might say something or do something. Or sometimes it's just mental actions. You think of something and then the next thought is another bit of karma. It's very fast, so we miss it. Ajahn Chah used to say, when you have suffering, often it's like falling out of a tree. You've gone to the top of a tree and you've fallen, you slipped, and you've fallen. You don't have time to count the branches and the twigs and the things you passed. All you know is you hit the ground with a thud and it hurts. It's so fast. He said karma is like that. This is his sort of practical description of what we call the paticca samuppada, the teaching on dependent origination, which is the center of all the Buddhist teachings, and a very profound teaching. The teaching on how suffering arises, how to abandon suffering, how to liberate the mind from suffering. Venerable Ananda once was meditating. He thought he understood the paticca samuppada, so he went to the Buddha and he said, "Oh, I understand this. It's very straightforward, cause and effect." And the Buddha said, "No, Ananda, don't say that. It's actually very complex and not easy for a human being to penetrate in their practice. So look again, observe more closely, because it's so fast." And Ajahn Chah said, you're up a tree and you just fall to the ground, bang. But what led to what? The little steps that led you to the top of the tree or to the fall, what was happening from moment to moment, it was so fast, you miss it. And that's why we keep making karma. You could say that's why we keep getting caught into this round of birth and death. We've been born before, we're going to be born again if we haven't reached Nibbana, because it's so fast. The only way to start catching up with your own mind and what's going on is practice. Number one, cultivate mindfulness. But we need the practice of sila as well, right effort, and then using mindfulness to investigate the mind and to turn the attention back to see how we cause suffering for ourselves or others or both, but then also how to abandon the causes of suffering so our mind is more free. And you need that mindfulness so that you can see what's going on, you can observe. That's for someone meditating maybe, it really directs their mind to get to know their own mind. They have to really work hard, and that's why we do go on retreats, come to monasteries, because it helps being in a quiet place to really intensify your practice so you can develop a much more consistent and deeper mindfulness maybe. But we just do the best we can wherever we are. One moment of mindfulness is already good. Many moments of mindfulness is better. And we have to just keep working on our practice. And you'll notice as the mindfulness improves, your ability to pay attention to your own mind, your own speech, your own actions, as it improves, you do start noticing the difference between kusala dhamma and akusala dhamma. You're separating out wholesome intention, unwholesome intention. Ultimately, your aim is not to attach to either. even good karma. We're coming to see that that's not something to cling to, because then you create another sense of self, and even some subtle suffering, such as, say, you have put a lot of effort into your meditation, you become quite calm, peaceful. You might have some joy, some rapture, some contentment, which is good, but these qualities are also impermanent, and so they may fade. And when they fade, if you attach to them with a sense of self, then you want them back. It's like you've lost something. So then you get annoyed, maybe, that you could do it yesterday, today you can't. You know, the suffering of the meditator, because our mind is not always the same. The experience, the results of our practice is not always consistent. So many meditators have this sort of up and down, or peaceful and then not peaceful, happy and then not happy experience, and that can be quite challenging. Sometimes it puts people off, gets them disappointed. But Ajahn Chah said, keep cultivating the same wisdom, you know, whether your mind is peaceful or not, keep reflecting. All conditions are transient, they arise, they pass away. Be patient, obviously, remind yourself of the Dhamma, and keep putting effort, come back to developing more mindfulness again. If your mindfulness has all disappeared and you've gone back to a state of confusion, fine, okay, you have to accept that, but go back to square one and keep practicing. It will come up again. Maybe next time around it'll be even better than before, because often through experience, through knowledge, experience that we've gained, we get better at doing what we're doing as we practice. More kusala karma, less akusala karma, perhaps. So we need to keep practicing so that we're more in touch with this mind and we catch it up. So there's less of this, you know, going to the top of the tree and falling to the ground with a thud. Often when I talk about that reflection from Ajahn Chah, it often reminds me of another story from where I used to live in Rayong in southeast Thailand, which is a fruit growing area. I used to live in an orchard, Wat Map Janus, in an orchard or surrounded by orchards, different kinds of fruit, durian and mangosteen and rambutan orchards. And there was a story from one of the villages nearby how there was this one guy who used to run a farm, orchard, and grew many trees, collected the fruit, and he'd have a whole group of workers and they would collect the fruit. As you do, you have to collect the fruit at the right time, look after it, take it to market, sell it, and hopefully get a good price. But this particular man, this particular farmer was a bit greedy. He used to see every piece of fruit on the tree as money, you know, like dollar bills hanging from the tree maybe, something like that. And he didn't want to leave anything behind because it's all money, it would all come to him as the owner. And so he was a bit of a bully with his workers. He's always sending them up the tree, get every last fruit, even the one on the sort of difficult branch that's quite hard to get and maybe even dangerous to get because some of the branches were a bit flimsy or high up. And all the different trees, different kinds of fruit, the same thing, you know, you've got to get every last fruit, get it down, collect it so we can sell it, make money. So he's very greedy. And there was one year they collected the whole harvest and there was just one durian, which is quite an expensive fruit to sell. You get a bit of money for it. And this one durian fruit was right at the top of the tree, one of his trees, on a very flimsy branch that was just impossible for someone to climb up and collect safely. So no one would go up and get it. And everything had been collected, they're preparing to leave, they wouldn't be coming back to that part of the orchard. And he just said, no, we can't leave this fruit, you know, there's money on the tree, we can't ignore it. But no one would go up, it's too dangerous. He says, well, I'll do it myself then. If no one else will go up, I'll do it. And they say the greed got the better of him. So that's the akusala karma, isn't it? You know, the desire for money, even to the point where you're going to risk your safety, go up top on a tree to collect this piece of fruit, which, it's only worth so much if you don't collect it. Well, it's not the end of the world, but the greed got him, got to get every last bit of it. So he went up the tree, got right to the top, and it was shaking around, waving around because it's so flimsy. And he got his hand on the fruit, and he's kind of leaning, and he lost his balance, of course, and he fell, and he became paralyzed, unfortunately. He didn't die, but he became paralyzed. Because if you fall on your back in the wrong way, well, that can be it. You can no longer walk again sometimes. So that was it, and that's why everyone remembers the story, because they knew that it was really his greed, this desire for that last fruit, couldn't let it go, led to disaster for him for the rest of his life. That's another way of looking at the same story from why do we sometimes suffer? Well, you go back to the cause. The cause was you want that extra bit of money, can't let it go, you've got a chance to get it, but there's a risk and you're not willing to consider the risk, you're just going to get it at whatever the cost. So he went up, and he did fall, and he fell right to the ground, and the thud wasn't just a bruise, it was paralysis, which was very unfortunate. That's how suffering gets us, isn't it? Kusala Dhamma, akusala Dhamma is like that. Sometimes our greed or our anger or our fear or our jealousy comes up strongly. That's karma, and you act on it, you speak on it, you act on it. It can bring up a lot of suffering for you, and maybe other people suffer as well. And not only that, it can last a long time. The suffering can even last into your next life. That's why monks chant this chant and remind everyone, if you're paying attention. So next time you go to a Buddhist funeral or you're involved in some way, try and make it a chance to really learn Dhamma, receive that teaching. That's kind of the last way we help each other, isn't it? Someone we love has died, but they're still teaching us. They're teaching us about impermanence. They're reminding us that karma that we make matters, good and bad. The things we do and say give results, and we want to be happy, progress towards nibbana, so make good karma and try to avoid making bad karma. So I'll leave you with those reflections today, and afterwards, if anyone has any questions, we'll do our best to answer.